want the Honorable Premier to grace us with prayers.
Let us pray. Almighty God, from whom all wisdom and power are derived, we beseech Thee so to direct and prosper the deliberations of the Parliament now assembled, that all things may be ordered upon the best and surest foundations for the glory of Thy name, honor and welfare of the people of these islands. Bless our Sovereign Lady, Queen Elizabeth II, Charles, Prince of Wales, and all the royal family. Give grace to all who exercise authority in our Commonwealth, that peace and happiness, truth and justice, religion and piety may be established among us. Especially, we pray for the Governor of our islands, the Premier, the Speaker of the Parliament, Ministers of the Cabinet, ex officio members, members of the Parliament, the Chief Justice, and members of the Judiciary, that we may be enabled faithfully to perform the responsible duties of our high office. All this we ask for in Thy great name's sake. Let us say the Lord's Prayer together. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be Thy name. Thy kingdom come. Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, those who trespass against us. Lead us not into, but deliver us from evil. For Thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. Keep us. The Lord make His face shine upon us, and be gracious unto us. Lord, lift up the light of His countenance upon us, give us peace, now and always. Amen.
Amen. Please be seated. Proceedings are resumed.
Administration of oaths or affirmations.
None.
Reading by the Honourable Speaker of the
Note that we have apologies from the elected member from Red Bay. And some notices of late arrivals.
Statements by honourable members of the government.
None.
Personal explanations.
None.
Obituary and other ceremonial speeches.
Just to note, honourable members, the passing of the Deputy Speaker from Cameroon, a friend of ours in the Commonwealth Parliamentary Association and a good friend of the member for Cayman Brack East. I must say that her name skips me, nevertheless, to take note and put it in a sudden pass just a few days ago.
Nomination for election of members to the Standing Public Accounts Committee.
members to the Standing Public Accounts Committee. This is a standing committee that exists under standing order. Therefore, there is no need for a motion to establish the committee. First of all, I would ask the Honorable Premier to read the terms of reference of the Standing Public Accounts Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, Standing Order 77-1 reads, there to be styled the Public Accounts Committee to consider the reports of the Auditor General, A, on the accounts of the government, B, on such other accounts required to be laid before the House as the committee may think fit, and C, on any matters incidental to the performance of his duties or the exercise of his powers as the committee may think fit. 2, the Public Accounts Committee shall be nominated by the House at the beginning of a new session and consist of 6 elected members. The quorum shall be a majority of members, including the chairman. Subsection 3, upon its receipt by the Speaker, a report mentioned in paragraph 1 shall be deemed to have been referred by the House of the Public Accounts Committee for consideration, and shall forthwith be distributed to all members and shall become a public document. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Premier. I will now take nominations for the Standing Public Accounts Committee. That committee comprises 6 members. Premier?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I nominate the member for East End, the member for West Bay, the member for Savannah. Thank you.
The member for Georgetown North.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise to nominate Leader of the Opposition, the member for Georgetown South, and the member for Bordentown East.
Will the member for... Is it you? I'm sorry that I have to ask the Premier to rename those persons. Give me the names of those persons. Yeah. I need their names. That's how I forgot to get it. Yeah.
Mr. Speaker, I rise again on our side for the member from East End, the member from West Bay Central, and the member from Savannah. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Constituencies.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise once again to confirm the nominations for the Leader of the Opposition, George from... Yeah, not that, I don't know. The member from Georgetown South, and the member from Bordentown East, Mr. Speaker, who's not here but has confirmed that he would accept the nomination.
Thank you both. Honorable members, member for East End, do you accept the nomination?
Mr. Speaker, I accept the nomination.
The member for West Bay Central, do you accept the nomination? And the Deputy Speaker?
Mr. Speaker, I accept the nomination.
Do you accept the nomination?
I accept the nomination, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. The opposition needs a seconder. to the nominations.
Mr. Speaker, I second the motion for nominations.
Afterwards. Nominations are then closed. I take it.
Mr. Speaker, may I move a motion to close the nominations, please?
The motion made that the nomination is all in favor. Those against? The ayes have it. Nominations are closed. The member for Georgetown East, do you accept the nomination?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I do.
The member for Georgetown South, do you accept the nomination?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I hereby accept the nomination.
And you have indicated the member for nominated from Bordentown East has agreed to serve.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Yes, he's not in the chamber at the moment, but he has agreed to serve.
And I would think that the House accepts that. Do we need a formal vote in his absence? No. There being no further nominations, we declare the following members to be the members of the Standing Public Account. The member for East End, the member, the Honourable Deputy Speaker for West Bay Central, the member for Savannah, the Honourable the Leader of the Opposition, the member for Georgetown South, and the member for Bordentown East. Leader of the Opposition. The chair. Leader of the Opposition. All members now being satisfied with the Public Accounts Committee, we have agreed. Premier?
Mr. Speaker, I rise to I just wanted to confirm for the record, as is tradition, that the Leader of the Opposition would be chair. So if you need a specific nomination in that respect, sir, I'd be happy to make
No.
that. If that's not the case, that's
And
fine.
once the member accepts, there's no objection.
No objection, sir.
Good. You've been there before.
Government business motions. Government motion number 1 of 2020-2021, appointment of the Standing Business Committee to be moved with the Honourable Deputy Governor.
Honourable the Deputy Governor.
Mr. Speaker, thank you. Mr. Speaker, government motion number 1, appointment of the Standing Business Committee. Be it resolved that in accordance with the provisions of Standing Order 79, this House appoints a Standing Business Committee charged with deciding the order of business of the House and, in particular, A, to consider the business papers of the House. B, to decide and inform the clerk in which private members' motions are to be debated on. C, to decide and to inform the clerk 2 clear days before a question day, the questions to be put down for reply on the order paper for that question day. D, to provide a consultation between members who are not members of the cabinet and the leader of government business, the leader of the opposition, the presiding officer, and the clerk. E, to select a member to read prayers on each day of the meeting of the House other than the state opening meeting. F, to inform the clerk the order in which bills shall be set down upon the order paper. And be it further resolved that the Standing Business Committee shall comprise 6 elected members. And be it further resolved that the quorum of the committee shall be 4 members of the committee, including the chairman, and that the committee shall meet at such times as called by the chairman. And be it further resolved that the committee review its terms of reference and report any recommendations on this to this honorable House. Moved by Franz I. Manderson, Deputy Governor, ex-official member responsible for the civil service.
Question is, be it resolved that in accordance with the provisions of Standing Order 79, this House appoints a Standing Business Committee charged with deciding the order of business of the House, and in particular, A, to consider the business paper of the House, B, to decide and inform the clerk the order in which private members' motions are to be debated on, C, to decide and to inform the clerk 2 clear days before a question day, the questions to be put down for reply on the order paper for that question day. D, to provide a ready means of consultation between members who are not members of the cabinet and the leader of government business, the leader of the opposition, the presiding officer, and the clerk. E, to select a member to read prayers on each day of a meeting of the House other than the state opening meeting. F, to inform the clerk the order in which bills shall be set down upon the order paper, and be it further resolved that the Standing Business Committee shall comprise 6 elected members, and be it further resolved that the quorum for the committee shall be 4 members of the committee, including the chairman, and that the committee shall meet at such times as called by the chairman, and be it further resolved that the committee review its terms of reference and report any recommendation to this honorable House. The motion is now open for debate.
Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Georgetown Central.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to nominate the elected member Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On behalf of the government, we look forward to the setting of this business committee to make sure that the order of business of this administration is followed suit in a timely manner to set the necessary precedents of the people's business.
Does any other member wish to speak? The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, just to say that the opposition bench does support the motion.
Does any other member wish to speak? Does any other member wish to speak? If not, the question is, and this is, I must tell you, this is one of the things we've got to change our standing orders for, because it'll be the 3rd time that I would read it, but under the orders I have to. So just in case members think otherwise, it's what I have to do. Be it resolved that in accordance with the provisions of Standing Order 79, this House appoints a Standing Business Committee charged with deciding the order of business of the House, and in particular, A, to consider the business papers of the House, B, to decide and inform the clerk the orders in which private members' motions are to be debated on, C, to decide and to inform the clerk 2 clear days before a question day the questions to be put down for a reply on the order paper for that question day. D, to provide a ready means of consultation between members who are not members of the Cabinet and the leader of government business, the leader of the opposition, the presiding officer, and the clerk. C, to select a member to read prayers on each day of a meeting of the House other than the state opening meeting. F, E, to inform the clerk the order in which bills shall be set down upon the order paper, and be it further resolved that the Standing Business Committee shall comprise 6 elected members, and be it further resolved that the quorum of the committee shall be 4 members of the committee, including the chairman, and that the committee shall meet at such times as called by the chairman, and be it further resolved that the committee review its terms of reference and report any recommendations to this honorable House. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those against? The ayes have it. Government motion number 1 has been carried. The Honorable Deputy Premier.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to nominate the Honorable Premier and the member for Newlands as a member of this committee and also to chair this committee.
Government. Be clear, the Honorable Premier, who would be the chairman.
Correct. Yeah, I rise to nominate the Honorable Premier, the member for Newlands, to be the chair of the Standing Business Committee.
The member for Georgetown Central.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to second the nomination.
No need for a seconder from government side. It is agreed by the government that the Premier is the chairman and he will make the other nominations from government. Is that the understanding? Leader of the opposition?
Mr. Speaker, I rise to nominate the Leader of the Opposition, the member from Georgetown East, and the member from Red Bay, who is not in the chambers at the moment but have accepted the nomination.
Honorable Premier.
Mr. Speaker, I rise to nominate the member from Bordentown West and the member from West Bay South to be members of this committee.
Mr. Speaker, I wish to second that nomination. Mr. Speaker, I wish to second the motion to appoint the Red Bay member as a member of the Standing Business Committee and the Leader of the Opposition.
That's 7 now. How many total? Okay, so you nominate as a 7. I think it's 6 plus the chairperson. And how many in the committee? Including the chair and not the clerk? Including the chair.
The Leader of the Opposition.
Thank you, sir. Beg to nominate the member for Georgetown North.
Can I have a repeat of those names and the constituencies, please?
Mr. Chair, if I can assist you, Mr. Speaker, the names nominated from the government bench is the member for Newlands, the member for Georgetown Central, the member for Bordentown West, the member for West Bay South. I understand, Mr. Speaker, that the opposition have nominated the Leader of the Opposition, being the member for Georgetown East and the member for Red Bay. I see that the Leader recommended a 7th member, but the Standing Business Committee is only obligated to have 6 members. But the government is in support of the recommended 4 from the government side. I'm not sure how to handle the recommendation by as they only are allowed 2 appointments.
Leader of the Opposition Committee consists of 6 members, 5 members plus the chair. I had not taken your nomination in any event. But if you want to just...
No, I just respectfully say we'll withdraw that. I'll withdraw that nomination.
Yes. I recognize that all members who have been nominated have agreed, and therefore the committee will consist of the Honorable the Premier, the member for Georgetown Central, the member for Bordentown West, and the member for West Bay South. On the opposition, the Honorable the Leader of the Opposition, the member for Red Bay. 6 members. These are the members for the Business Committee.
Hold on.
The Honorable Deputy Premier.
Oh, he has to do that.
Mr. Speaker, just for clarity, I just want to nominate the Honorable Premier, the member from Newlands, as the chairperson of that committee.
I thought that was a taken. He didn't formally do it. I thought that I had said the member for Newlands as the chair. Out of an abundance of caution, the Honorable Premier is the chairman of the Business Committee.
Government motion number 2 of 2021-22, appointment of the Standing Privilege Committee, to be moved by the Honourable Deputy Governor.
The Honourable Deputy Governor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Government motion number 2, appointment of the Standing Select Committee on Privileges. Whereas Standing Order 79 provides that this Honourable House may appoint other standing elect committees as required from amongst its members, and whereas on the 19th day of May 1998, this Honourable House established the Standing Select Committee on Privileges by way of private members' motion number 3 of 98. Be it therefore resolved that, in accordance with the provisions of Standing Order 79, this House appoints a Standing Select Committee of Privileges to consider and report to the House on any matter of this Honourable House. And be it further resolved that the committee comprise all honourable members of this Parliament, the chairman being elected from amongst its committee members. And be it further resolved that the committee shall elect a deputy amongst its members who shall act as chairman of the committee during the absence of the chairman. Moved by Franz I. Manderson, Deputy Governor, responsible for the civil service.
Question is, be it therefore resolved that in accordance with the provisions of Standing Order 79, this Honourable House appoints a Standing Select Committee consider and report to the House on any matter affecting the privileges of this Honourable House. And be it further resolved that the committee comprise all honourable members of this Parliament, the chairman being elected from amongst the committee members, and be it further resolved that the committee shall elect a deputy chairman from among the committee members who shall act as the chairman of the committee during the absence of the committee. Is the move of the motion, is the Deputy Governor speaking, or are you speaking?
No, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Premier.
Mr. Speaker, I rise to accept the motion on behalf of the government.
Does any other member wish to speak? The member for Georgetown Central.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On behalf of this honourable government, we look forward to this committee as we find it a key part of the democratic process for any good government. It also acts as a check and balance of members of this honourable House, and we support this motion in its totality.
Does any other member wish to speak? Does any other member wish to speak? I take it that the appointment of the chairman shall be at the first meeting, or do we do that from the floor of the House? If no other member wishes to speak, all in favor?
Aye.
Those against? The ayes have it. Government motion number 2 is carried. Mr. Premier, or the Honourable Deputy Premier.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On behalf of the government, I would like to nominate the Honourable Premier, the member for Newlands, as the chairperson of the Standing Select Committee on Privileges.
Honorable Premier.
Mr. Speaker, I am pleased to accept.
From Georgetown Central.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move a motion to close the nominations.
If there are no other nominations, nominations agreed to be closed. All in favor? Aye. Those against? The ayes have it. The Honorable Premier is elected as the chairman of the Standing Select Committee on Privileges. The motion for this is that we shall elect a deputy chairman from among the committee members who shall act as chairman of the committee during the absence of the chairman. The honourable member for Georgetown Central.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would like to nominate the Deputy Premier and elected member for Bordentown West.
Member for Bordentown West.
Mr. Chairman, I accept the nomination.
Are there any other nominations?
Mr. Speaker, I rise to close the nominations.
Motion moved, the nominations be closed. All in favor? Aye. Those against? The ayes have it. Nominations closed. The Honorable Premier is the Deputy Chairman of the Standing Select Committee on Privileges. The Honorable
Committee motion number 3 of 2021-2022, appointment of the Select Committee to oversee the performance of the Office of the Ombudsman, to be moved by the Honourable Deputy Governor.
The Honourable Deputy Governor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, Government motion number 3, appointment of Select Committee to oversee the performance of the Office of the Ombudsman. Whereas Section 45 of the Public Management and Finance Act 2020 revision states that the Ombudsman shall be accountable to the Legislative Assembly for the performance of the Office of the Ombudsman. And whereas Section 45 of the said Act provides that a committee of the Parliament should be responsible for overseeing the performance of the Office of the Ombudsman, or if no such committee exists, the Speaker shall be responsible for same. Be it now therefore resolved that in order to provide for the oversight of the Office of the Ombudsman, this House appoints a select committee to provide such oversight. And be it further resolved that the committee shall comprise of 5 elected members. And be it further resolved that the quorum of this committee shall be 3 members of the committee, including the chairman or deputy chairman. Moved by Franz I. Manderson, Deputy Governor, ex officio member responsible for the civil service.
Question is, be it now therefore resolved that in order to provide for the oversight of the Office of the Ombudsman, this House appoints a Standing Select Committee to provide such oversight. And be it further resolved that the committee shall comprise 5 elected members, and be it further resolved that the quorum for the committee shall be 3 members of the committee, including chairman or the deputy chairman. The motion is open for debate. Honourable Deputy Governor.
Mr. Speaker, just to very important committee. It's part of our good governance apparatus, that watchdog of the civil service and its performance. So I would ask all members for their support.
Member for George. Member for Honorable Deputy Premier.
Thank you. I rise to support the motion also. That the public recognizes that, and also in particular the members of the public service that the Ombudsman office deals with, is that while there is oversight of the civil service, it is also important that the public knows that we also have oversight on people with responsibility for doing this. So if there are any public servants who also disagree with the findings or anything within the Ombudsman report, that they are comfortable that there is a recourse. And this is part of the foundation of democracy, where we do have to, in essence, check the checkers. It is also very important in its role, and it's important for the public servants to know that there's not just one person out there who put a report, and then that's the end all be all of it. So it is a very important role in our democracy, and I'm really glad that we have this committee here to also give public servants another avenue if they disagree with the Ombudsman.
Member wish to speak? Does any other member wish to speak? Exercise his right.
No, sir, just to thank all members for their tacit support.
Question is, be it now therefore resolved that in order to provide for the oversight of the office of the Ombudsman, this House appoints a standing select committee to provide such oversight. And be it further resolved that the committee shall comprise 5 elected members, and be it further resolved that the quorum for the committee shall be 3 members of the committee, including the chairman or the deputy chairman. All in favor?
Aye.
Those against? The ayes have it. Government motion number 3 is carried. The government making the appointment of the chairman. Nominations are open. Honorable Premier.
Mr. Speaker, thank you very much. I rise to nominate on behalf of the government the member from West Bay South, the member from West Bay North, and the member from North Side. The Leader of the Opposition to indicate on the floor who his 2 nominees are for this committee. Thank you very much.
Opposition.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, on behalf of the opposition, I beg to nominate the member for West and the member for Georgetown North.
Are there any more nominations?
Mr. Speaker, I beg to second that nomination.
Nomination is seconded. Are there any other nominations? Can someone move the Honorable Premier?
Mr. Speaker, I rise to address an issue that has just become apparent. I'd like to withdraw the nomination for the member from West Bay South and replace that member with the member from Bordentown West, the Honorable Deputy Premier.
Thank you very much, Premier. Is there a motion for nominations to be closed?
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Speaker, I rise to move a motion.
The question is that nominations be closed. All in favor? Aye. Those against? Ayes have it. Nominations are closed. The member for Georgetown Central.
Mr. Speaker, just out of abundance of caution, we did not select the chairperson, and on behalf of the government, we would like to nominate the elected member for West Bay North to be the chairperson of this committee.
Question now. Does the member for Bordentown West, the Deputy Premier, accept the nomination?
Mr. Chairman, I accept the nomination.
The member for West Bay North, do you accept the nominations both as a member and as the chair?
Yes, Chairman, I do. Thank you.
Member for Northside.
Mr. Speaker, I accept the nomination.
The member for Georgetown West.
Mr. Speaker, I accept the nomination. Thank you.
The member for Georgetown North.
I accept the nomination, Mr. Speaker.
All nominations have been accepted. The members of the committee, the chair is West Bay. Members Bordentown West, who's the Deputy Premier, the member for Northside, the member for Georgetown West, and the member for Georgetown North. That would be the committee. Honourable members, as presiding officer, all three committees are very important committees. Two committees that are very important to the chair would be the performance of the office of the ombudsman and the committee on privileges. I would ask gather for the preparation of a code of conduct to work in tandem with the Committee on Privileges. I think we need to have that in place as soon as possible. From our standpoint, we would certainly, from my standpoint as chair, I would certainly talk to the Premier on this matter and get our parliamentary staff organized to work with the Premier or whomever he appoints to carry through that work so that we can put it in place as quickly as possible. The adjournment, Honourable Premier. I would suspect that members want this opportunity to, upon the motion for adjournment, to have exercise a custom of members speaking. Honourable Premier.
Mr. Speaker, I rise to move a motion for adjournment of this Honourable House. Sine die.
As I indicated earlier, I know that members wish to exercise the customary right for new parliament. I thought I saw the member for Georgetown Central rise. The member for Georgetown Central.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'll try my best to be as brief as I possibly can to give the new elected members an opportunity to take the floor for the very first time. Mr. Speaker, it's a pleasure and an honor to be in these hallowed halls for a second time. And I would like to firstly thank God for his blessings on not only myself, but my family and my country throughout these times. I'd like to also thank my family, my mother and my father for their continued support throughout this vigorous campaign. A special thank you to my committee members who worked so hard. Some days I candidates themselves, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to also thank my political advisor, Mr. Edlin Moore, better known in the streets of Cayman, for his continued support and advice to make sure that I landed on the government side this time around. Mr. Speaker, but more importantly, I want to move now to the two amazing women of Georgetown Central who nominated me to be the voice of the people of Georgetown Central for another 4 years. That being Miss Mavis Morrison and Miss Vernice Miles, now Ebanks. Without their support and belief in me to legally sign their names, I would not be standing here in this honorable house today. But in closing, I want to thank the voters of Georgetown Central for putting their faith and trust in me to stand on their behalf for the next as we face some challenging times. I would like to say committed to giving my all in respect to making decisions on behalf of them and their families to improve their lives. And I'm also honored to be I believe can deliver those necessary changes in a time like today. So in closing, Mr. Speaker, I want to also congratulate you for your commitment to in assisting the people to end the long drawn-out negotiations and allowing the people of the Cayman Islands to form a government that they wanted. Thank you, Mr.
The Honourable Deputy Speaker, the member for West Bay Central.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I stand here today a very humbled woman. I would like to start in the very same fashion that I do when I rise daily. First, by thanking me another day to make a difference. I would also like to thank my husband, Michael, my parents, my children, and the rest of my family for the sacrifice that they have put in over the last several months, and the sacrifice that they will again continue to make as they support me, country. I would like to thank my nominees, two strong women from West Bay, Miss Darlene Glidden and Miss Jordana Hyde Hurlston, for believing in me to the point of putting their name on my nomination paper. I also want to thank my committee, who worked tirelessly and gave up their time without compensation so that I can be here today. I'm grateful for all of these persons who are my core foundation, who also believed in me and supported me with words of encouragement. I'm very proud to be here today, a day to be remembered in the history of the Cayman Islands. The commencement of this administration marks the highest amount of female representatives to serve concurrently as members of Parliament in the Cayman Islands. It is a testament to how far we have come as a country, and certainly as women. I stand here today because of those women who petitioned and paved the way and also to stand in general elections. To them, I am eternally grateful. I am looking forward to being a voice and an advocate for all of the women of the Cayman Islands, and not only the women, but for the men, the children, and future generations that are counting on us to restore the balance that gives them the opportunity to live the Caymanian dream, like some of us have been fortunate to do. Success for Caymanians should not be an exception. It has to be the rule. We can no longer ignore our environmental and social responsibility, and I will serve the people of West Bay Central and the Cayman Islands with those thoughts at the forefront of my mind always. I'm pleased to be sitting on the government side with the independent MPs, fulfilling the mandate of the people. I am excited that fresh out of the gate, this government has already committed to putting provisions in place to ensure MP accountability and code of conduct. I believe that as a collective group, we can move this country forward to where it needs to be, and I trust that we will always be guided by what is in the best interest of this country. I would like to close by saying that I promise and integrity, and I promise to always be accountable to the people, Honorable House, and these Cayman Islands. Thank you.
The Honorable Member for Prospect.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for this opportunity. The people of the Cayman Islands, but especially Prospect, it is my pleasure and a great honor to stand here today in our House of Parliament as an elected representative for the Prospect Electoral District of the Cayman Islands. I am humbled and honored to be afforded this opportunity to walk in the footsteps of women of Parliament before me. I will endeavor to uphold the sacred principles that were determined by them, which has brought us to this space of determination, honor, and respect. For the first time in history, there has been 5 women elected into political office, and it is my desire during my tenure to inspire and lead by example so that other females will become interested and aspire to at this level, shattering the stigma surrounding women's ability to hold political office, sit at the table with my male counterparts, and taking on any other role they may so desire in society. As stated in our manifesto, it is my desire to enhance our community, strengthen the family unit by being more inclusive, no matter gender, age, or social status, which is the foundation of success for our people and our country, while educating, empowering each other, especially our young adults, to reach their full potential and have access to equal. Our youth are near and dear to my heart, not just as a mother, but as someone who has dedicated many hours working in tandem with you for the betterment of our community and to become more inclusive of our youth, young adults, and I chose to run as an independent candidate in the general election, and having ran the race and won, thanks to God and to you making me your choice. That's the people of the Prospect Electoral District. I am absolutely certain that I did the right thing. Together with the support of you and my colleagues, I am confident that the hopes and dreams of for Prospect can and will be realized, but most importantly, recognizing that democracy works when you, the people, become more educated of the election process, get involved in the community, and go out and vote. I trust that you will quickly discover that I am not all talk and no action. When I set my mind to anything, I have the tenacity to get it done and will uphold our collective wishes that has already been demonstrated. Get the hopes and dreams of the Prospect realized, making them a reality once and for all. At this juncture, it would be remiss of me not to acknowledge my predecessor, Mr. I thank him for his representation over the past 4 years. I would also like to thank my beloved family, especially my husband, my nominators, Ms. Irma Arch and Mr. Winston Ebanks, my small yet dedicated committee, close friends, and for their patience and full support as I embrace this new chapter in my life with dignity and grace. Without each of you, this would not have been possible. This being my very first venture into the political arena, thus far, the journey has proven to be tough, but an interesting journey of my growth, both personally and professionally. It has been an experience like none other, but one for which I am grateful to be part of a dynamic team who genuinely has people and country first, not self. Undoubtedly, I have emerged stronger, wiser, and better able to serve you as we continue to unite, work, and walk together, uplifting our community and ultimately these beloved Cayman Islands, because all one. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for North.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, it is my honor and great privilege to humbly stand here today as the duly elected member for the District of Northside. I am filled with gratitude, first for guidance and grace, for his many blessings, and for his wonderful people of Northside, for the confidence and trust they placed in me as the right person to help lead these beloved islands to the brighter future. I extend sincere congratulations to all members of our on their respective roles. In particular, I also wish to congratulate and commend our newly elected Honorable Premier on this historic achievement as the first leader of the independent government. I pledge to work with him and all of my members of this House to ensure that we will be the government all Caymanians can trust. A government that will provide the service that our people want and need. A government that will restore the faith and confidence in its leadership and rebuild the economy. The lesson coming out of this election is that our islands were ready for a change. Collectively, we answered the call. It is therefore its time to recommit and dedicate ourselves to restoring these honorable values, accountable governance, to this country. On that note, I thank the PPM for their years of service. I strongly believe that their membership and new government can and indeed must work together for the good of the country. It is my pledge today that I will endeavor to carry out my duties to the best of my ability. And in so doing, I will treat each of my colleagues in this honorable House with the utmost respect. Indeed, it is my prayer that we can all commit to serve these islands with integrity and respect, based on the sound principles instilled in us by our forefathers. May we all put aside differences and move forward in the same spirit. I am mindful of the fact that I would not be here today without the love and support of my fellow Northsiders and my two nominees, Mr. Ransford McLean and Mr. Oswald Rankin. I want to thank them. So from the bottom of my heart, I say thank you, Northside, for your faith and trust in me. I want to extend a special thanks to my wife and my family for all of their support during the challenging times. Last but not least, let me also thank and trust the committee for your commitment and dedication during the campaign and for their pledge to stand by me going forward. My heartfelt thanks to all of you, to my country, my beloved Cayman Islands. I will always remain true and faithful.
The Honourable the member for West Bay South.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to take this opportunity to deliver my maiden speech. Mr. Speaker, I should tell you that when the House stopped its business on Wednesday, I was torn as to whether or not we would resume on Thursday or today, because I campaigned very hard on the protection of the environment, and it would have been an honor to deliver a maiden speech on yesterday, which was Earth Day. However, I am not totally disappointed because today is my youngest daughter, Savannah's birthday. She is 6 today, and I am honored to deliver my maiden speech on her birthday. That, however, motivates me to be brief because I am under strict orders under upper management in my home to be there for her birthday party at 4 p.m. today. And I would like to set a precedent with my family to try to keep as much as possible important family appointments. So I'll take this opportunity, Mr. Speaker, to just give thanks and make a few remarks. Thank you to God. The journey was one of a leap of faith, and I could not have done it without the Lord and the Holy Spirit. To my amazing wife, Tiffany, my children, Jackson and Savannah, my father, Atlee Ebanks, all of our West Bay 4 parents looking from above, my Nana Laura, my mother, Elena Ebanks, my incredible sisters, Elizabeth, Megan, Abby, and to all of my friends and family here and abroad. I'd also like a very heartfelt thank you to my extraordinary campaign team. Many times on the campaign trail, I did not refer to it as my candidacy. I referred to it as our candidacy. A group of diverse individuals who wanted to start a movement that would inspire a government working hand in hand for the people of the Cayman Islands. Thank you all. It would hurt me to see you work long hours on a voluntary basis, but I know you did so because you believed the cause was just. To my nominators, of which there were 4, Mr. Speaker, I read every page, every sentence of the Elections Act, and I noticed that the nomination was at least 2 nominators. So I thought, as a newcomer, it would be fitting to have more the merrier. I had to debate it with the returning officer, Mr. Delano Solomon, but he accepted my reading of the law. I also wanted to have I will thank my nominators, my cousin Patty Rivers, Ms. Jen Headings, who refers to me as my boyfriend, but my wife is okay with that, Captain Owen Farrington, and Mr. Roy Grant. Thank you for your trust in nominating me. I think it is something that's maybe overlooked, but I think it is an important duty for you to be nominated. That person has put their name next to yours to say that you are a viable candidate. Thank you. I would also like to extend thanks to the Elections Office for throughout the entire process, their professionalism was superb. I don't think that I could have seen a finer group of officers to organize this election in a short-term basis. Mr. Speaker, no matter what capacity that I will serve, I would like to extend these remarks to my former brothers and sisters in the civil service. I look forward to working with you so that you feel that your work is valued and respected. Mr. Speaker, I'm heartened to hear you a few moments ago remind this honorable House that one of the first orders of business will be a code of conduct. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would also like to thank my predecessor, Ms. Tara Rivers, for the work that she completed in 8 years. It is a quirk of fate that I served her as a civil servant, and now she's my constituent. But I'm pleased to see that pick up from where she left off and try to serve West Bay South with a united set of West Bay MPs, united district forward in earnest and in prosperity, with a bonded government team who I pray will work in a collegiate fashion with the opposition. To the voters of West Bay South, please know that you are all in my heart. I'll be working diligently to achieve as much as possible what was in my manifesto of a reimagined Cayman. Mr. Speaker, God bless this honorable House, West Bay South, and these Cayman Islands as we move forward with positivity, with inclusivity, in a humble, harmonious fashion, in service of the people of the Cayman Islands. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for East End.
Mr. Speaker, fellow members of the Parliament, my constituents of East End, and the people of the Cayman Islands. It is with humility and even more gratitude that I stand here today in our House of Parliament for this most auspicious occasion. Mr. Speaker, I cannot help but reflect on my constituency's predecessors who took this journey as vestrymen, MLAs, or more recently as members of Parliament. They have each paved the way and set a standard for me to follow and emulate. A standard that in many respects is high and challenging. Today, as a political rookie and walking in their footsteps, I'm comforted by their presence hanging from the walls of this Parliament. However, I'm also excitedly nervous and humbled with the opportunity and challenge before me. I'm up to, and indeed has begun, and one which I will tackle head-on with vigor and vitality. I give thanks to God for giving me the strength, health, and vision to pursue this journey most can only dream of, and I thank him for a free and peaceful election process. I'm also very thankful to the community of East End for placing their faith and trust in me to be their Member of Parliament in this next government cycle. That your will not be taken for granted, and please know I will tirelessly represent the entire community. But let me say that again, Mr. Speaker. I will tirelessly represent the entire East End community. You will be hearing and seeing more from and of me. Thank you. I would like to also thank my opponents for. I look forward to their involvement and guidance as we move beyond the campaign phase of action for the country. I would also like to thank my campaign committee members, the committee chairperson, and the many volunteers. You worked tirelessly. I also want to thank my family and friends for their constant support, strength, and encouragement. My advisors, your advice on strategy was invaluable. Mr. Speaker, I know what it is to want. I know what it is to go to sleep hungry. I know what it is to barter, and it was not too long ago that I walked around the district of East End on bare feet. I reflect on that to say that while this dream has materialized, and as I look forward to working for my people and with my colleagues on both sides of the Parliament, I will remain focused and grounded while remembering that I'm merely a servant leader of the people. I also want to give thanks to the staff of the Parliament. I look forward to your support and working with you. And the people of the Cayman Islands. Thank you.
Does any other member wish to speak? The member for Savannah?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm truly humbled to stand here before this honorable House today. Of working in these hallowed halls over 25 years ago, when I served as an elected member for the District of Bordentown in the Legislative Assembly. I was honored to sit in the seat of the late Honorable Haig Bawden. Today, my title may be different, remains the same, as it was over 2 decades ago to serve my country. But I believe they are necessary. First, I thank God, because without Him, none of us would be here. My family, my sisters who stuck by me, my nieces, my nephews, my grandnieces, my grandnephews, my friends, pastors of churches near and far who prayed over the phone with me. I will not forget their kind words. The Savannah constituents who voted for those who voted a different way, I was honored to take my oath as a newly elected Member of Parliament for the electoral district of Savannah. I was especially proud on Wednesday to take this oath alongside 4 strong, intelligent, and inspiring women. And Honorable Speaker, we look forward to making a difference. I wish to publicly thank my nominators, Mr. Ray Jackson and Mr. Stanton E. Banks, and to Mr. Andrew Eden, who saw to it that all was duly signed and stamped with his JP seal. I too echo the words of West Bay South sentiments towards the election workers. They are deeply, they went above and beyond the call of duty, and they are so appreciated. I sincerely thank them all. To the new Premier, the Honourable Wayne Panton, I want to say thank you for always being a source of strength to the community. We know the road ahead will be filled with many trials, but I know you are the person to lead us forward. I have seen your strength and humility on display over the years, but this past week I witnessed just how deep those wells run. You have worked tirelessly, selfishly, and with a clear vision of being as inclusive as possible to ensure all of our people are heard. I'm proud to stand next to you and be a part of your government. To the Deputy Premier, Honourable Chris Saunders, and my other Cabinet colleagues, since Election Day, we have spent countless hours together, many of them fraught with challenges. Through it all, you have made me feel hopeful for the future. Intends to serve the people of this country, willing to be held accountable to and by the people. To my Savannah Newlands constituents, I've served you for decades, and I promise I will not lose sight of you and the needs of our community while I take on the added responsibility of the needs of the country. We are the Cayman Islands, and I was elected in my community to serve the country, the whole country. Those who are vulnerable, those who are elderly, those who do not support PACT, and those who do. To all the women, mothers, daughters, aunts, and grandmothers listening, we are the backbone of this society, and we play an equal and important role in every aspect of it. Today, Mr. Speaker, 5 of us stand here committed to empowering more women to come forward and serve not only at the highest levels of government, but in positions to power throughout the society. We make, or action we take, will be perfect or viewed positively, but it will be well thought out and done in service of the Cayman Islands and its people. I am reminded of a quote from Charlotte Whitton, who was the first female mayor of a major city in Canada. Quote, "Whatever women do, they must do twice as well as men, just to be thought half as good." Luckily, this is not difficult. My sleeves are rolled up, so let's get to work, for these are beautiful Cayman Islands. And Mr. Speaker, this begins first thing tomorrow morning with all the people in Savannah Newlands that are taking part in the Earth Day cleanup, and I trust that all others will take this opportunity to make a difference island-wide by getting out and making our islands clean and beautiful. Mr. Speaker, I wish to take this opportunity right now to just direct a few remarks to the Honourable Member for Newlands, our new Premier. This is coming from his Newlands and Savannah communities. And the Cayman Islands are elated. I've been asked by his committee to tell him how proud they are of him. He has been a strength, a tower. They don't make them like him anymore. Mr. Speaker, this gentleman has faced much criticism throughout this entire campaign, but has been the epitome of peace and calm. When I think of all that he has been through personally, the triumphs, the tragedies, the great personal losses, it fills me with great admiration for him and his passion for this country and our Caymanian people. He's a man that will steer this country in the right direction. He's here to build up, not tear down. Mr. Speaker, my final words are from an old familiar song. Lord, make me a channel of your peace. Where there is hatred, let me bring love. Where there is injury, your pardon, Lord. And where there's doubt, true faith in you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and may God continue to bless these beautiful Cayman Islands.
Does any other member wish to speak? Does any other member wish to speak? The member from Georgetown West.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Yeah, let me try break up the monopoly of the government speaking, so I'll just have a few words to say. Oh, no, I don't really need that, but anyway. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. 4 years ago, I stood in the Honorable Legislative Assembly, honored and humbled to be the elected member to represent the constituency of Georgetown West. But today, Mr. Speaker, to be honest, I stand in the Honorable House of Parliament even more honored and humbled to have been re-elected in the constituency of Georgetown West. I want to thank the constituents of Georgetown West for having the faith and the belief in me to re-elect me to represent them for another 4 years. I deeply want to also thank two great persons who nominated me to run for re-elections. Mr. Niels Godfrey, who nominated me for the second time, and Mrs. Valney McLaughlin. I thank them so much. To be re-elected, it goes to show that the constituents of Georgetown West feel that I must be doing a good job, and I pledge to continue to work not only in Georgetown West, but the entire Cayman Islands. Mr. Speaker, I further want to thank my many family and friends who have supported me through the 4 years, and especially over the last 6 weeks. And Mr. Speaker, I have to deeply thank and gentlemen who went out of their way to help me over the last 6 weeks. I would like to name these young persons because without them, I know definitely I would have had a problem being elected, canvassing everywhere we went, and the long hours they put in to help me. Sigourney Artiaga, Jalissa Ramoon, Vanessa Hurlston, James Jackson, and even though I say Tommy Ramoon, it's the young Tommy Ramoon. I also, and I know he believes that he's young, my twin brother Christopher, I have to mention him, and with great, deep gratitude, I have to thank him for all he's done, not only in the last 6 weeks, but especially definitely from COVID, the hours that we spent on the road in Georgetown West. We never advertised it, but he and I spent many, many hours in Georgetown West, and not only we spent many hours throughout the Cayman Islands helping those that needed help during the COVID period. And I just want to thank everybody who was Mr. Speaker for allowing me the time today. Thank you.
Does any other member wish to speak? East, sorry. A member for Down East.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. A very good morning to everyone, all the listening. As this election was going to take place, Mr. Speaker, I said a prayer that night of the election, and I asked God to let it be His will. Came a little late this morning, Mr. Speaker, preparing for the funeral today.
Honourable member, I recognize you have quite a difficulty and a tough time. Do you want to carry on at this point? Certainly, I would take. If you want to get a break, I will give you that chance and allow someone else to carry on if you need a break.
No, Mr. Speaker, I'll tough along. Thank you for your patience with me. To first thank the people of this beautiful first capital, Bodden Town East. Thank you for electing me as your representative, as your MP. Winning in such great fashion. It's my first time being re-elected. I know your hopes and prayers for me to continue as a minister and continue the good works, to be able to work with the current government, to be able to achieve similar success. I want to thank my street teams. I want to thank my agents, the office staff. I want to thank my constituents of Bodden Town East. I want to thank Mr. Berry. I want to thank my chief advisor, Mr. Scotland, all the drivers and volunteers. I want to thank Ms. Betty, Ms. Judith Seymour, all the people that allowed me to come into your homes and utilize your for meetings. It has been a very long year, one with COVID and pandemic, never seen in 103 years. I want to congratulate Premier Panton for his win. I want to also congratulate all the ministers, Premier, my good friend Chris Saunders, my good friend Ms. Julia O'Connor Connolly, my good friend Sabrina Turner, my cousin Jay Ebanks, my good friend Andre Ebanks, my good friend Kenneth Bryan, my in-family connect, Ms. Kathy. I want to thank Ms. Heather, Isaac, Rankin, my good friend Bernie Bush. I don't think I've forgot anyone, but it seems like they're all good friends. I know you all. Whatever I can do, especially with the experience in protecting our people from COVID, community spread, I'm willing to give whatever advice or lend whatever help that I can to any committee you create. The people have spoken, and whatever is good for the country that I can support, I will do so. Whatever I think needs further discussion, I will do also. It's my first time in the opposition, and it does feel a little bit weird, but I'm sure this will be a great source of experience. The feeling of sleeping on the floor until I was 11, not getting Christmas gifts, not getting anything at all.
Mr. Speaker, I know this is somewhat unorthodox. I'm going to cross to support my friend. I'm not crossing the political divide.
Purchase a home. This is what drives me to continue representing this great country. To my constituents, I will be fighting in the same manner, with respect to the respective ministries to achieve as much as possible. This is going to be a tough day. My constituents, the back to school, Christmas for kids, Christmas for seniors, Easter for kids will still continue. As a man of 4 daughters, raised by pure ladies, my aunts, my mother, Petals, my grandmother, Carolee, go on. I applaud the historic elections and choosing 5 women as MPs. Hence the reason why I always exclaim that the women left behind while the men went to sea, or brave men, are my heroes. I always remember my good friend saying that no one cares what you know until they know that you care. Teresa, this one is for you. Thank you.
Does any other member wish to speak? Does any other member wish to speak? The member for Georgetown North.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, Max Dupree said the first responsibility of a leader is to define reality. The last is to say thank you. And the in-between, the leader. Mr. Speaker, I stand here today first as a representative for the people of Georgetown North, then as a member of the opposition in this parliament, and lastly, as a proud member of the parliament representing the People Progressive Movement. That, Mr. Speaker, is my reality. Mr. Speaker, to congratulate this parliament on being elected to this honorable house. Also take the opportunity to congratulate the Premier and his government. Your task is tall, and I wish you well. Mr. Speaker, the past few months have been one of the most arduous periods in my political career. The influence of the unregulated world of social media caused confusion amongst our people. The final days of the campaign and the 6 days following the results exposed the ugliest side of politics and our people. The hatred and the aggression towards each other in front of the world to watch left a stain on our country. Mr. Speaker, this is not the example of leadership that we want to demonstrate for our children. And so I hope that each of us here will do our part to discourage this type or these types in the future. Over the last few weeks, or the type of actions that we saw over the last few weeks. Mr. Speaker, it is my hope that each of us will lead with dignity and be the statesmen and stateswomen that will demonstrate to the world who we are. Mr. Speaker, I endured relentless attacks on my character, attacks on my family life, and my integrity. However, Mr. Speaker, the good people of Georgetown North were not swayed, nor were they fooled, and they re-elected me to be their representative for the next 4 years. And Mr. Speaker, I am committed to representing them and these 3 beautiful islands to the best of my ability in my constituency and in this honorable House of Parliament. Mr. Speaker, much was achieved over the past 4 years, by far the most important of which was the government's response to the COVID-19 pandemic. And might I say, even those on the other side should be thankful for that. However, Mr. Speaker, the foundation of many other great initiatives have been laid. Cayman Islands Center for Business Development, Plan Cayman, the introduction of a 3rd subsea cable to modernize our island, the recommendations to reduce the traffic congestion on our roads, and the Public Works Apprenticeship Program, the ISWIM's Integrated Solid Waste Management System, and the capping of the land. Mr. Speaker, I'm committed to continuing my support for these and other programs, and I'm equally as committed to continuing to advocate and work for the people of Georgetown North for the next 4 years. This, Mr. Speaker, is my commitment to be of service to the people of Georgetown North and to the Cayman Islands. Mr. Speaker, therefore, this leaves for me to say, Mr. Speaker, that leaves for me to say thank you. I want to first thank God for his mercies and for his continued protection over our beautiful islands. And Mr. Speaker, I want to say thank you to the people of Georgetown North. It is with humility and graciousness that I offer my sincere appreciation and gratitude for once again choosing me to represent you for the next 4 years. Your support, your loyalty, hospitality that you extended to myself and to those who were canvassing for me did not go unnoticed, but was rather appreciated and provided hope during times of confusion and uneasiness. So thank you, thank you, thank you, and may God bless you. I'd like to also thank my nominators, Ms. Betty Barrow and Mr. Thomas Bodden. To my family and close friends, Mr. Speaker, which got closer but much smaller, thank you for your unwavering support and for demonstrating that you believed in the Joey Hugh that you know, and not the villain characterized by my opposition and the keyboard warriors jacked up on caffeine at the coffee shops. To you I say never worry, for I will always take the high road, and I will never do anything to cause you shame or disgrace. To my committee and the dozens of volunteers for years, and especially during this campaign, I once read, an eagle cannot soar if it is surrounded by a bunch of turkeys. So I say thank you for raising me up and for being the support that allowed me, 1 foot and all, to soar across the finish line in style, claiming victory over our. Your commitment and dedication to Georgetown North is greatly appreciated, as I know it is not easy to stick your head out in this ugly world of politics and to publicly offer your support and assistance to me, and therefore I am forever grateful and humbled by each of you. To my colleagues and the loyal members of the Progressives, I say thank you for your support and for your confidence in me. Stand strong with our heads high and with dignity for what we stand for, our motto, love of country. We will continue to build on our strong base and stand ready to serve our country at any time to build a stronger, safer future for these beloved islands. Mr. Speaker, I'd also like to take this opportunity to thank the staff in the Ministry of Commerce, Planning and Infrastructure and the various subjects and departments that I had the privilege to work with over the past 4 years. Much was achieved, and we rose to various challenges faced over the term. Continue to serve our people with pride and empathy, and remember to always consider the outcomes of your actions. Mr. Speaker, I will close with the following quote: President Thomas Jefferson. In matters of style, swim with the current. In matters of principle, stand like a rock. May God bless these. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Does any other member wish to speak? The Honorable Leader of the Opposition.
Let me see what works. To make a short contribution to these proceedings this morning. Mr. Speaker, before I begin, I just want to go on record in expressing my condolences to my colleague, the member for Bodden Town, the sudden passing of his secretary a couple of weeks ago. Mr. Speaker, despite the grief and mourning that he has gone through, he still carried through the remainder of the campaign and was, quite successful in gaining the re-election at the polls last week. But I know today is the lady's funeral, and I know he's having a really tough day. Condolences on behalf of us all. Mr. Speaker, the past 6 weeks have been quite stressful and challenging for every one of us in what has been a very keenly contested election. We're now at the end of this election cycle, with the election on Wednesday of the Honourable Wayne Panton as Premier of this country. I congratulate him on his successful election, and I wish him and every one of you in the new government well as you seek to lead this country forward. Congratulations to you all, and congratulations to you, sir. Today, I find myself in the opposition, and I am joined by 5 of my progressive colleagues and the independent member from Bodden Town East. Together, we are 7, and we make up the opposition. Within the parliamentary system, we have an important role to play in holding government accountable to this Parliament and to the people of the Cayman Islands. I promise the good people of these islands that in my role, I will be robust, but I'll be fair in exercising my duties. I promise also that I will be respectful of every member of this Parliament, and I will never resort to personal attacks. I also recognize this morning that any new government will need time to become acquainted with, knowledgeable of, and comfortable in their new roles. I've been there, so I know firsthand. The opposition will give them a period of time to do just that. In other words, to get your feet. I first thank the voters of Georgetown East for support for me at the polls. I am truly humbled today by your strong support for me. My constituency office remains as it always has for the past 4 years at the Progressives headquarters on Crew Road, and I invite my constituents to visit and meet with me there. I also thank my team of progressives for their support and the trust they have placed in me as their leader. I am encouraged to have such a strong and seasoned team of MPs sitting with me on this side of the Parliament. I also thank every member of the I had the pleasure to work with over the past 4 years. In particular, I have to give thanks to everyone at the Ministry of Finance, but specifically Financial Secretary Ken Jefferson, Senior Assistant Financial Secretaries Ann Owens and Michael Nixon, and the Accountant General Matthew Tibbetts. I thank them for their friendship and the strong support they gave me and their unwavering support during my 4 years in the ministry. Collectively, I can say proudly, they are true professionals. And, Deputy Governor, they embody your vision of a world-class civil service. You have a great team, Financial Secretary, and I wish you all very well. I have to say this morning, I will truly miss them. I also thank my committee and the many volunteers who assisted me throughout this campaign for the many hours of tireless service and help in assisting me to. I couldn't have done it without them. Finally, I give thanks to my family for all of their support during this campaign. Pay particular tribute to my wife Glenda, my 3 daughters, and my 2 grandchildren, who I've basically not seen in more than 6 weeks. The strong support of family and friends was invaluable to me, and what gave me the courage and determination to persevere throughout this election cycle. I thank you this morning, Mr. Speaker, and may God continue to shower his blessings on these beautiful Cayman Islands. Thank you very much.
Does any other member wish to speak? Does any other member wish to speak? The member for Georgetown South.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Although the circumstances of my return to this honourable chamber might be somewhat different to when I was last here, there is one thing that has remained constant, and that is my representation of the good people of Georgetown South. Let me say to them in the clearest possible terms that I understand the privilege they have bestowed on me. I remember what they said to me during the campaign, and I intend to honor their wishes. Mr. Speaker, from my new position, I will continue to push this administration for better infrastructure, affordable health care and housing, free health care for our children, continued improvement of our education system, and the equitable treatment of women and the vulnerable on behalf of my people in Georgetown South. On this side of the aisle, Mr. Speaker, I will continue to represent my constituents with dignity and truth. They deserve nothing less. I wish to join in welcoming the first-time members to this Parliament with the hope that their stay will be fruitful and always to the benefit of the people who sent them here. Mr. Speaker, it only remains for me to thank the 524 people who voted for me and to say to those who did not vote for me that the election is over and I will represent all of the constituents of Georgetown South for the next 4 years to the very best of my ability and without fear or favor. First of all, let me thank God and the people of the Cayman Islands for their prayers, love, and support. It has been an extremely difficult 6 weeks for me, and as the member for Georgetown South, it's been almost unbearable what the social media has actually alleged about me and my family, and it's just really been very difficult for me. I also wish to thank my campaign team, to include my family and friends who canvassed for me, and to thank my polling and counting agents who worked diligently on polling day. I would like to thank my personal assistant, Ms. Vicky Ferrero, who stood by me through thick and thin over the past 4 years, and who worked diligently over the past 6 weeks, which, as I indicated, Mr. Speaker, was the most difficult 6 weeks of my life. I can honestly say that my campaign was a clean and dignified one. Last but certainly not least, I would like to thank Mr. Norman Bodden and Ms. Hyacinth Hugh for nominating me. So, Mr. Speaker, I will conclude my brief remarks with a question to my fellow lady parliamentarians across this aisle, the aisle of this honourable House of Parliament. And I say, hashtag, is she supported? Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity.
Does any other member wish to speak? Does any other member wish to speak? The Honourable Deputy Premier.
Mr. Speaker, I really didn't plan on speaking today. I wanted to give the newer members their opportunity to speak, having been in their position 4 years before. But, Mr. Speaker, I recall the words of Marianna Williamson that was made famous by the late former South African President Nelson Mandela when he completed his journey from prisoner to president, when he said, "Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us." We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, or fabulous? Actually, who are you not to be? You're a child of God. You're born to make manifest the glory of God that is within us. It's not just in some of us, it's in everyone. And as we let our light shine, we unconsciously give people permission to do the same. And as we are liberated from our own fears, our presence automatically liberate others. I say that to say, Mr. Speaker, fear. More than 500 years ago, Machiavelli in his book, The Prince, said, it is better for rulers to rule by fear as opposed to love, because people decide who they love, people do not decide who they fear. And as such, it is the one emotion, the one human emotion that is very easy to play on because people have no control over it. They will get up and they will threaten people to say, well, if you vote for this one, you vote for that one, this is what will happen to you. And it is fear. Mr. Speaker, I am very happy with the events of last week, and I'm very happy with the way things turned out. Because one, it is a process, but two, it gave the Caymanian people and the world a first-hand view of the metal that now sits on this side of the Parliament. Mr. Speaker, when I look at my colleagues on this side, starting with my good friend, the member from West Bay North, when I started this journey from 2000, back in the year 2000, I have had no more arguments and fights and malice and anything than I have with that member. But Mr. Speaker, he's still here, and he's still my friend. Mr. Speaker, I look at the member for West Bay South. The first time I engaged with that young man, he was sitting right there as a government employee. At the time, it was a Public Accounts Committee. And Mr. Speaker, I can honestly say then, what I've seen now, decent young persons I've ever met in a long time. I can say I am happy to be sitting on this side of the aisle with the member for West Bay South. Mr. Speaker, the member for North Side is one of the first persons I had to apologize because I was wrong about him. I misjudged him. And Mr. Speaker, in the fullness of time, the country will come to realize the debt that we owe the member for North Side for keeping this government together. I can honestly say single-handedly, the member for North Side is one of the key persons why we're here today and have kept this together. And I want to publicly recognize. Mr. Speaker, the member for Prospect, I only recently met her. The first time I spoke to her, Mr. Speaker, it was because someone said something that they heard. I said something about her. And the truth of the fact is, Mr. Speaker, I didn't even know what she looked like. I had to go on Facebook, send my friend a picture and say, is this the same person? You know what? Send me her number. Called her, had a good chat with her. And the first time I met her in person, I greeted her with the words, Madam Minister. And I am proud to stand here to publicly say to you again, Madam Minister. Mr. Speaker, friend from Georgetown Central, what can I say? I have been in the trenches with him, and he's one of the most hard-working, caring men. And Mr. Speaker, I am very happy to be sitting on the side with him. Mr. Speaker, start with the member from West Bay Central. Young, energetic, but full of promise, smart. Speaker, when I hear people get up and say, government has no experience, I think of the many Caymanians coming back from school that are denied opportunity because they said they have no experience. They're qualified, but no experience. We have used that line to keep many Caymanians in this country down. And I'm happy to see that member there. Beside the member for West Bay South is the member for Savannah. Mr. Speaker, I've been in some corners of this country, and the member of Savannah is the only person I can say that I also see either coming or going when I am coming or going. Mr. Speaker, they always say the measure of a person is how they treat people that they think they don't need. Mr. Speaker, the member for Savannah has always treated every single person with love and respect. To be working with her on the side. Mr. Speaker, the member for East End. Yes, he have stumbled. As I said at Prospect, an error does not become a mistake until we fail to correct it. And as simple as you want to see it, Mr. Speaker, all of the things that happened is what created the government today. You probably wouldn't have been in that seat if you didn't have stumbled. But, Mr. Speaker, it gave the country the opportunity to see what this government was made of. And you know what? I am glad that things work out the way it did, because we were to be tested the way in which we were tested. But the public and the world got a chance to see firsthand the power of the special interest group in this country. But you know what? As Machiavelli also said, the end justifies the means. Mr. Speaker, I look at the member for Cayman Brac East. I am very happy she's on. She is one of the most dedicated parliamentarians in the Western Hemisphere. And I feel much better, and I know the country is better served with this level of experience and knowledge serving this country. And regardless of what people may think, I can tell anyone this much. I have had my own disagreements, but her dedication and commitment to this country can never be questioned. Because at the end of the day, she has always allowed in her politics for it to never be tribal. And that is a very commendable state to be in. Mr. Speaker, I turn to the Honorable Premier. This is the first time he and I are on the same side politically. During the 2017 campaign, no one said anything bad about him. And there were two reasons for that. One, both of my sisters actually like him a lot. And one of them actually had the privilege and pleasure of working with him. And she said to me, Chris, he is one of the most hard-working persons I've ever met. When you have people with that level of work ethic, working for this country and serving this country, it is one of those things. And Mr. Speaker, the one thing when I think of the new Premier, which I'm happy to be working with, I recall a poem that my mother always instilled in me from an early age. Heights of great men reached and kept were not attained by sudden flight, but they, while their companions slept, were toiling upwards through the night. Mr. Speaker, on election night, when we should have all been celebrating our victories, the Premier was able to assemble a team. Many of us, including myself, left people at my home who were partying and happy for to say, listen, let's meet up, let's start. 10 of us gathered, 12, 1, 2, 3 o'clock at night, when others were partying. The Premier, designated at that time, was already. And it sets the tone when I even look in the chat group up to this morning that we created. 1, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, messages still flying. We're still here on time for this parliament to start at 10 a.m. to set the stage of what the country can expect from this government. Mr. Speaker, when I look at the tie that I wear, the red tie, as much as everyone is saying wrong color, that was the last present my father gave me before he passed. And he's one of the persons who encouraged me for public service. And that red tie is what I wear in his memory. Mr. Speaker, I had never had a political committee. I had one in 2013, I lost. I didn't have one in 2017, and I won, and I sure as hell wasn't going to have one again in 2021. My committee is 2 people, my mother and my sister. My nominators are the same as in 2017 and 2021, my mother and my wife. And the reason I actually do that is, 1, people know who they're going to vote for. And 2, I've always been fearful of political victimization, of people exposing themselves, because we are aware that there are people out there who take politics like this. But, Mr. Speaker, the one thing I really feel good about is yesterday while we sat down there, we discussing, this government made a commitment that we will respect every single member of parliament inside this House, inside this assembly, including opposition. And one of the first things we started committee 6 members, 3 from the government side, 3 from the opposition side. The government had the majority. We could have stacked it differently. We didn't. Because you know what? We do recognize that every single member in this House has a role to play, because every single member was elected to represent every single Caymanian. And we have decided we're going to do things differently. And for that, I am grateful. Mr. Speaker, in the week of putting together this, I've had the first chance to see another side of the Premier. And I can tell you from right now, I'm going to go on record to go down and say, this is going to, the member for Newlands is going to be the best Premier this country has ever had. And this group of people on this side is committed to making that happen. Because if he's the best Premier, it means we are the best country. And as the Premier said in his opening speech, his inaugural speech, our best days are still. Mr. Speaker, our people need to recognize that despite the global pandemic, the story of who we are as a people is still being written. But look from whence we came to where we are and to where we're going. And there should be no doubt that the Caymanian people have the capacity to achieve any. Mr. Speaker, as a result of work, and I can tell you, some that I've ever engaged with globally has been right here locally. And Mr. Speaker, the biggest thing that we need to stop doing is being fearful and start trusting in ourselves. I can tell you right now, this government is going to be committed to not using consultants or these overseas consultants as we normally do in the past, because we have the talent here. We're not going to be spending millions of dollars bringing people here and then they leave with the knowledge. Talented individuals. We're going to invest in our own people, and if we make mistakes, let our own people learn from those mistakes, because this is how we grow. This is what a country does. And Mr. Speaker, I am happy that the has decided to remain in this chamber, as opposed to everybody else. In all my interactions with him, I've found him to be a decent person. And it has now set the stage, at a minimum, that we know that the Honourable Leader of the Opposition is not going to be tribalistic in his approach. Because, Mr. Speaker, there are a lot of challenges facing this country. The member does not have all the solutions. The members on that side alone does not have all the solutions. But I can tell you something, Mr. Speaker, the people of the Cayman Islands collectively will have the solutions. Because when the time has always counted, we could have counted on our people to do the right thing and look after. The Premier ran with the slogan, "Community creates country." And Mr. Speaker, we need to get back to the community level in this country. The days of measuring our success based on GDP and all of that stuff cannot be the only measure. We need to start looking at the quality of life of our people. What is that we need to do to make their life better? My campaign, Mr. Speaker, was on one central issue. What is it that keep our people awake at night? And those are the issues that I ran on, and many others on this side ran on. Mr. Speaker, here's the reality. We have an aging population. We need to start looking at healthcare. Our people are living longer. We need to make sure they're. We have a fertility rate that is below the natural replacement rate. There are a lot of hard decisions that need to be made. But, Mr. Speaker, ageism in this country, the minute a person passes a certain age, they're trying to be frustrated out of the workforce. Why? Because the health insurance premiums are too high. These are the issues we need to fix. Mr. Speaker, we have inadequate pension. The public service has an unfunded pension, and the private sector as a seriously unfunded pension. We all know the 10% contribution rate was inadequate to begin with pre-COVID. And the decisions we made in COVID have made it more challenging. Mr. Speaker, we have challenges in education, but I want to say one thing, Mr. Speaker. Our education system is not as bad as people make it out to be. It is a tool to discriminate against Caymanians in the workforce. And to prove it, Mr. Speaker, when they do come back from universities, having been educated in North America and Europe, they still can't get a job. So it can't be about anything about our local education system. People not just wanting to hire certain people. And this is what it is that this government is committed to fixing. And Mr. Speaker, there are things that are on the roll in education that needs to be dealt with. And we can't go through this cycle where every 4 years, we're changing this ministry, this ministry, this ministry. These are the kind of things, Mr. Speaker, why it's important for us to start developing a national strategic plan for this entire country. It cannot be done in a 4-year cycle every single time. We started with Vision 2008, and by the 2000 election, everyone campaigned on it. By 2000, we need to start having long-term strategic plan. And these are the kind of things that the government must develop in tandem with the opposition. So regardless of whoever the government knows, people and the investors and everyone else who call the Cayman Islands know, at least have something of what they can expect is going to be done. But Mr. Speaker, this is serious business. Yesterday, the new cabinet started the orientation process. And we got an in-depth. And I can tell you the picture ain't so rosy. But you know what, Mr. Speaker? The public already know that. So we're not here about blaming the previous government. Every single one of us inside this chamber is now 1/19 the owner of the problems of this country. And we have to fix it. So one of the things that you from me, unless it's going to be in defense of the government, because as there's a rule in politics, is there is no future in the past. What happened has happened is where we are today and where we're moving from there. But Mr. Speaker, as I said, I didn't really plan on speaking. I wanted this to be about the new members. But I've just felt I had to get up and say something. We are still forgiveness. And Mr. Speaker, as I said to you before, yes, I beat up on you on the campaign. But at the end of the day, the people of West Bay West also has the democratic right to choose who they want to represent them. And they chose you. And every single member in this House has to respect that. You notice not once, Mr. Speaker, have I got up and I called anybody by their name. Because there are no names inside this parliament. It is the member for Prospect. It is the member for Georgetown Central. That is who is inside here, because that is who the people choose. There is no Chris Saunders. There is no McKeever Bush. It is only the people that we represent is reflected in this parliament. And that is done there to take out the personalities and all the personal stuff. This building, Mr. Speaker, is not about individual. It's about issues. It is not about personalities. It's about policies. This is what this building is for. And I can say to anyone, when you do leave this building and you do go back to your names, I expect every single one to adhere by the code of conduct and carry themselves in a manner that is decent and reflective of the people that we were elected to serve. Mr. Speaker, in closing, I really want to thank my family. And I've been blessed that at least about 80% of my family live in Bordentown West. That's why I can refer to it as my home constituency. Yeah, that's right. My family big too. But Mr. Speaker, I really and truly want to thank the people of Bordentown West that despite the personal attacks, my wife got drawn into this. My mother got drawn into this. I mean, and the individuals of all who were, the temerity and the audacity of some of the individuals who are even calling my family name. If I was to really open up, but I said, you know what? God bless them. That's all I kept. And the one thing I'm happy for is that I did not fall the temptation to get into that mudslinging and gutter politics. Because the people that I represent in Bontown West is good, hardworking, decent, aspirational Caymanians. And then I said to them the same thing I said to my mother and my Uncle George McCarthy. I will never, ever do anything to embarrass the family. And I say to them, I will never, ever do anything to embarrass you. Am I perfect? No. Do I make mistakes? Yes. The person standing here is a reflective of second chances, and I said it. My first year at university, Mr. Speaker, my GPA was 1.69. Stupid. It's because I wasn't motivated, I wasn't dedicated, I wasn't disciplined. They let an 18-year-old loose in the streets of New York, and I had a good time. I had a great time. I partied, and I partied well. But Mr. Speaker, I should have lost my scholarship, and I didn't. I was told to go back and finish, which I did. And when I went back, and the younger kids started calling me elder, I knew it's time to get out. Mr. Speaker, I am optimistic, and I feel good about where we have a lot of work. There's still a lot of challenges. Our people are hurting. That is not lost on any of us inside here. And it sure isn't lost on the Premier. Because that is the work ethic that he has brought to this team. Is that recognizing that people out there have challenges. We are tasked to make sure that the Cayman we leave today is better for the kids coming tomorrow. And the one thing he said to us yesterday is any decision we make, please ask ourselves, what will this impact in the next 5 years and the next 10 years? And if we see where it's going to be a problem, let us not do it. And Mr. Speaker, that is all I can ask for in a Premier. There are 3 things that I ask of the team on this side. The first, I ask them to care. And I can tell you, Mr. Speaker, I would not work with anybody if they weren't caring. As a member for Bontown East reminded me, which I always said, people do not care how much you know until they know how much you care. You have to care about people in this business. The next thing I ask is to be committed. This morning, every single person was here on time. They have showed up to every meeting thus far. And the last week following the election, I got a chance to see everybody's commitment firsthand. The other thing I ask for, Mr. Speaker, is competence. And I can say thus far, everybody in their own unique way is competent. And I can guarantee you, Mr. Speaker, with the diversity of this team put together, is going to be a very competent government. And that is what we want to do. In the end, Mr. Speaker, we're not going to be remembered by the Cayman we inherited. We're going to be remembered by the Cayman we leave behind. But one thing I want to say, the things that are wrong with Cayman can still be fixed by the things that are right with Cayman. And with that, Mr. Speaker, I want to say, as the Premier said on Wednesday, our best days are still ahead of us. And we're going to make the Cayman Islands the best place to live and work on this planet. And I'm looking forward to working with this team and also the leader of opposition and his team in moving this country to the next level. But make no joke about it, Mr. Speaker. We recognize now the power of the special interest group in this country. The people are aware of them now. And while many of them have earned their seat at the table, they can no longer own the table and every chair of this country will now have their say at that table. Because this is what we fought for, and this is what this government is to deliver in. Thank you all. God bless.
The Honorable the Deputy Governor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I shall be brief. Mr. Speaker, first I want to recognize the Progressive Alliance and thank them for their service to our country, and thank them for their support of the civil service during their administration, and also to the Leader of the Opposition for his acknowledgement of the civil service and his contribution. Mr. Speaker, I also want to wish Savannah a happy birthday. I also want to take this opportunity to wish Mr. Ernest Scott, who is retiring this afternoon. I'm actually traveling over to the BRAC for his retirement celebration this afternoon. He is retiring after 47 years, Mr. Speaker, in the civil service. And I would ask all members of this House to join me in thanking him for his dedication to public service and to the people of the Cayman Islands, especially the other islands. He has done an amazing job for us, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I too want to recognize the Elections Office, Supervisor of Elections, Mr. Howell, and his amazing team for delivering what I think we all agree has been a world-class election. I think they did an excellent job, and we owe them certainly a debt of gratitude. Mr. Speaker, it's a great pleasure for me to be here, to be working with this government. Mr. Speaker, we have a diverse government. We have, for the history-making government, 5 women are with us today as part of our parliament. Mr. Speaker, that is historic, something that we should be proud of. Mr. Speaker, I got a message from 2 of the women in my life, my daughter and my mom, saying that they were watching me. So I want to acknowledge them, tell them how much I love them, and I cannot forget my dear wife of 38 years. Now we've been together, for all of her support during over the last 38 years. She knows I love her very much. It's also very, very proud of me to say that here in this chamber, those that I worked with, the member from Minister Bush, served in the civil service. I don't think we actually worked together, but I know he's a civil servant. He did an amazing job at the sports office and at the Pirates Week's office. But I did have a really great opportunity to work with Minister Turner, Minister Ebanks, and I know that the Deputy Premier was also a civil servant at one time. Mr. Speaker, it's another proud moment for me, Mr. Speaker, is that 3 members of the class of 1981 here, the Premier, Minister Bush, and myself, we all went to high school together. Mr. Speaker, you think about that. That is really something to be proud of. I'm proud to serve with my fellow classmates. It means the class of 1981. Mr. Speaker, that sends a signal to our young people that with dedication, with hard work, with pushing yourself, being honest, having integrity, that you can achieve a lot together. 3 members of one class are in cabinet together. I would like our young people to really think about that and know that the Caymanian dream is still alive. You can still achieve a lot if you're willing to do the things that I said earlier, how you conduct yourself, having respect for others. Mr. Speaker, public service is, I believe, in the world. Having the ability to make the better is an amazing opportunity. Mr. Speaker, I've done it now for 39 years. I've worked my way up the civil service to where I am today. And over that time, I've dealt with thousands and thousands of people. Seeing the look on the faces of our people, our Caymanians, when we advise them that they have gotten promoted and able to assist them, are things that I think we will never forget. Mr. Manderson, do you remember in 19 you helped me? And I don't remember the occasion, but they do. People remember how you made them feel. Something that we must always appreciate, and I think that was the message of the Deputy Premier earlier, is people remember how we make them feel, and it gives us that opportunity to make people feel very special. The civil service, to make the lives of those we serve better. The new government yesterday, the civil service ready, willing and able to serve them. That is our job, Mr. Speaker. Our job is to serve the government of the day. We serve them by implementing their policy priorities and projects with pace and with care. Mr. Speaker, I was changing gears. I was reflecting on my working experience with the members here in the chamber. And I'm going to embarrass Ms. Turner a bit, but she and I worked together over at the Immigration Department. And as a young rookie, she came in, and I was immediately impressed with her. I gave her a very difficult assignment. I'm not going to go into any more details, but I'm sure she will remember our incident with the OBA man. Let's just say that Ms. Turner was fearless. She was with us on all of our operations together. She was right there. And I look forward now to working with her in cabinet, along with my fellow civil servants, Minister Bush and Mr. Ebanks. Mr. Speaker, the Caymanian people have spoken. I said to the government yesterday that if I listen to the theme of their campaigns individually, there were a number of things that came out that they wanted to be a priority, which will now be the priority for the civil service. There was a loud message from all members that they wanted Caymanians to feel that they are first in their country. Caymanians first. They wanted sustainable development. They wanted cost of living. They wanted excellent care for those persons who are vulnerable in our society. They wanted better protection of the environment. Mr. Speaker, that those will now be the priorities of the civil service. Mr. Speaker, trust and respect is earned. I think we did a good job of earning the trust and respect of the previous administration. It is now our job to earn the trust and respect and confidence of the new government. But, Mr. Speaker, I want to assure them that they have our support, and we will work diligently and professionally to deliver on their priorities. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable, I thought the member had indicated. The member for Cayman Brac East.
Thank you. Mr. Speaker, I want to go on record, first of all, to thank Almighty God for hitherto has He brought me. He has allowed me the awesome privilege and indeed responsibility of having been returned by the good people of Cayman Brac and Little Cayman originally, and now through the process of constitutional change, to be the member for Cayman Brac East. This is my 7th election that I've been successful at. Mr. Speaker, usually it was my father, who is now deceased of blessed memory, who took me to Cayman Brac to campaign meetings from the time I was a wee little girl. And it was like the late Captain Keith Tibbetts that allowed me to spend many long hours as a young child in watching plays at his store, Tibmark, telling me about the government, why it was important to go to school and get an education. And coming up, there were many good Cayman Brac politicians that I looked up and admired, one of whom is the late Captain Charles Colonel. Little did I know that back in 1991, when I finished my second degree in law, education having been my first priority, that I would get an invitation by the late Captain Charles Colonel to go to Little Cayman, and as it were yesterday, he took me on his property and asked me to look towards Cayman Brac and asked me what I saw. I explained the geographical outlay. That did not satisfy him. I attempted to explain the sociological outlay. That did not satisfy him. And he kept asking questions until he finally got the courage to say, I no longer am satisfied, you young girlie, that tells the era from which he came, to be an aspiring young lawyer for your own ambitions, justified though they were. But I want you to see beyond what you explain, and I want you to see a people in need of a representative. And of course, I had just come through 6 years of law school, excited to change the world, make a difference in the gender landscape for the underprivileged, to provide a legal voice for the people. And I couldn't see how I could just spend all of that time and now go into a political atmosphere, one reserved for the men. But with God, all things are possible, and I took the leap. It's now going, as I said, to my 7th time. Each time has been different. Each time has been more challenging. Once we can stand the pull, Mr. Speaker, God always has that capacity to pull us through. There's been none like this one, campaign or 7 days of negotiation. God allowed me to see the good side and the bad side. But there's a little song that says, through it all, I've learned to trust Him. I've been to many places, indeed, I've seen many faces. And had I not had a problem, I could trust Him. I thank God for the valleys, I thank God for the hills, and I thank God for the opportunities that He allowed me to be His conduit and His channel. Mr. Speaker, my mother, who has never been involved in politics, and I don't know quite was contemplating whether or not I would offer myself yet for another term. My mother's usually the first one to discourage me because of the remarks and the onslaught of attack that she comes 7 years old with many underlying ailments. I thought long and hard this time. Without even knowing who my opponent would be, I did as I always did, Mr. Speaker. I sought God for a word. And as I sat in my bedroom in the Bluff, Cayman Brac, I was impressed to turn to Exodus 14:14, and having read the Bible many times, I still was not that good that I knew what Exodus 14 said, but I looked at it, and it said words to this effect: I, the Lord, will fight for you. Hold your peace. And words cannot adequately convey or indeed express how significant that was and undergirded and strengthened me and given me the courage and the confidence to go up against the opponent that I had, to go through the last 7 days, and to make perhaps what will probably be recorded in history as one of the most difficult decisions in my life. I was given the mandate from my people as a current minister to return in a ministerial position. I fought as assiduously and as with my friends across, and indeed they are my friends. I spent the last 8 years with them. I don't have a lot of family in Cayman, and the PPM became my family. And I know that it was a political risk as persons who have not yet walked down the road of putting country first and really being put to the test to prove that country is first would perhaps have capacity to have an illegitimate expectation that I was turning my back on a party that I ran with and encouraged other people to support. But, Mr. Speaker, lest they be further misguided, may I now establish and embed it into the annals of the Hansard of this honorable Parliament. Once you are a human being, Juliana Yvonne, don't ever turn her back on you. I saw it as a set of circumstances that was so orchestrated because my God sets up governments and he brings them down. It's not for me to question, but I am mandated to pray for those in authority and all of those in authority. When all possibilities, all matrices had been analyzed, it came to a point that once you reach 10, you could have a government, but a speaker from outside. Once you reach 11, and the Honourable Premier, the member from Newlands, was able to successfully navigate and submit that, I then made the decision. I, Juliana Yvonne O'Connor, without any special interest groups, without any pressure from any standard, that my first duty and calling was to the people of Cayman Brac East, Cayman Brac West, Little Cayman, to ensure that we had a seat at the table in Cabinet. Mr. Speaker, for me it would have been a grandmother having had to wait for 12 years to have little Emmanuel, to have sat on the backbench, to meet perhaps 3-4 times a year, with a lot of time to help raise him and steer him. But I did not get elected for my own personal benefit. I got elected to build this beloved island's Cayman. And so as I thought about the decision, and I thought gravely, the scenario that flooded my mind was that elections are gone, it's over. It's time for us, for Caymanians, to unite, because divided we most certainly will fall. And after all, Mr. Speaker, we're still in a pandemic that was led successfully by the Honourable Alden McLaughlin. And I'm not calling his name out of disrespect, but it ought to know who the person was. And my colleagues across the way, with the support with the opposition and the support of all of the people in the Cayman Islands. Because if the Cayman Islands go down, we all go down, Mr. Speaker. And so I viewed it as election having been passed, the midnight hour fast approaching, the governor issuing the proclamation, and I stand weighing in the balance. Would I go down in history as destroying the engine of the good ship Cayman because I could not be the captain, or would I get on board to plug in holes that I possibly could plug, small though they may be? I took the decision, cost it what it may, as Esther of old, when she said in Esther 3, if I perish, I perish, but I will stand on the side of keeping the good ship Cayman afloat. And that is why, Mr. Speaker, I see no single member here today as an individual, as an independent, as PPM. I see their heart and soul. And I sincerely, Mr. Speaker, believe that every member fought and gave it their best fight. Hence, they won the confidence of their individual constituency. And they're here to do the very best that they can to make sure that we can get off the blacklist, the grey list, reinvigorate and restart and be the catalyst to get our economy back and going. Because of the good financial stewardship of the now Honourable Leader of the Opposition, we have reserves that can perhaps take us through to the end of December. God forbid that we have an earthquake or a major hurricane, and we are overdue. We're past 10 years since Paloma. But, Mr. Speaker, one thing I know, that though we pass through the valley of the shadow of death, indeed it is just that, it is a shadow. This too will pass. And as my mentor from a distance, Michelle Obama, has said, when anyone goes low, it is my distinctive choice to go high. And I will take that choice today, even though the lawyer in me would want to get up and defend the defamatory statements that were made during the campaign, the threats that were made, and the abuse that my precious 70-year-old mother, my son and my daughter had to endure. I took it on because burdens are still lifted at Calvary, and Jesus is still the solution for this country. I have been accepted on this side as an individual, not just coming for the first time. Each and every member here would have heard of myself. I do it not of my own strength, but I allow myself to be used as a conduit to express what my people want. And in any form or shape, it is my motive to lead this good ship Cayman, this term being my final term, a bit better than I found it. May it please you, Mr. Speaker, may God's blessing on these wonderful, blessed Cayman Islands as we build this country together. The ship is about to leave anchor today. What you do during this 4 years, not you as Speaker, but you as each individual member, will determine whether it's still afloat. May God be with us as we make this voyage.
The honourable member from West Bay North.
Mr. Speaker, I too had no expectations of speaking today. And when some of my constituents, they were said to be West Bay North better speak. And I too want to say that I know personally that I'm here because of God. The campaign that was run against me, the slander, the smut, the lies, it was none like other. Until Chris told me they had called him a Bordentown West, said they'd call him a money launderer. Mr. Speaker, I too learned from the member from Bordentown West, like he said, in 2000, the first time I ran. He was right there looking over what I was saying maybe you should say it this way you won't offend anyone. And I had so many people call me and do exactly what the member from Cayman just said, take the high road. And take the high road I did. In fact, I took plenty roads. The favorite one, Mr. Speaker, was to drop the children of my constituents home when my opponent, some of his people were dropping off pamphlets. I think the children dropping off the children is a value a little more than a piece of empty paper.
But, Mr. Speaker, I didn't have a committee either because of the same thing of the victimization that could take place. And in fact, a 21-year-old former youth parliamentarian says to me, Mr. Speaker, that she would like to speak on my platform, only to get a call from a member of my opponent's family telling her she better not. But this was why when what stopped me, Mr. Speaker, I said to her, check with your parents first. She came back, she says, have you never sat down at the table with me, and my mother and my siblings? And Mr. Speaker, it was true. I should have known she was going to speak, and speak she did. Mr. Speaker, people volunteered to pay for my signpost. It was done by the little man. Mr. Speaker, it would be remiss of me not to mention 3 people that in the first 8 years I've been here had given me a lot of good, sound advice. Mr. Ezra Miller, who I sat on the PAC with and also on the Oversight Committee for the Complaints Commissioner, and the man who had a lot, who talked to me, McLean. They are not here, but for me, they will never be forgotten. They all played their part. Mr. Speaker, when the Deputy Governor spoke about the class of '81, in 1980, I got in a fight at the Cayman Islands High School. And Mr. Roy Borden, I beat up 2 brothers, and I was wondering whether it was from Borden Town, why he grabbed me up. And he said something that I've never forgotten. He said, you shouldn't be doing this. He said, you're a bridge. There are certain people in this class that will never be able to come down to the bottom here, and if they do, they won't look real. And there's certain people at the bottom will never go to the top. You can get along with both. He says, you're a bridge. I was reminded Mr. Borden about it. Secondly, on April the 23rd, 2006, today, a man passed away named Mr. Rudolph Willis. When you lose, when you run, those who have experienced it, it's not a good feeling. Some people want to go and hide. And when you lose, no one remembers you, no one shows up except through friends. Mr. Willis showed up at my door and knocked. I've always told his children about this. Knocked on my door and he said, he put his hand in front of my face. Mr. Speaker, he says, can you see this? I said, no. He moved his hand back and he said, the good Lord is drawing a picture. It's not your time yet. Your time will come. And when your time comes, you will be a bridge between the Jamaican community and the Cayman community. And you'll be a bridge between the younger people and the older people. And here we are today, Mr. Speaker. Opposition is one of the nicest people I've met since I've been in here. I said it last night, and I say it again today on the floor of this house. Caymanians first, Caymanians second, Caymanians third. That's what I'm here for. In every sector, private sector, government sector, you talk to Caymanians, they're not even second class anymore. And stop right here. It was a pleasure yesterday when we were being briefed that one of the biggest conversations we had was about getting people with certain types of handicaps into the workplace. I felt so good when I heard my colleagues all jump on with it. I know we have a team that cares. We have a team that I do hope continues to operate the fact that nothing is behind a wall. Everything is transparent. Because I do know this, our Caymanians must be put first.
The Hater Barkas is a no discussion zone, nothing. We have 3 members here on this side. And if the 3 of us can't get it done to stop anything up there, then something is wrong. Very, very, very simple. Mr. Speaker, I want to say to everyone, our leader is quite capable, and he has something that I've got to learn to acquire, and that's patience. And he and the deputy leader have already spoken to me to not be so rough around the edges. And, Mr. Speaker, I'm working on it. But I will be me and I will be truthful. What is that? To the people of West Bay North, to my family, and to people throughout this island, when you hear people driving from other parts of this island to come to West Bay and speak to their family and friends in West Bay North, that should tell you. Thank you all for your prayers. Thanks for everything. To my team, thanks for sticking together. That was the important thing. My people will now my people feel better, make me tell you all, because of what we did those 6 or 7 days. No one budged. And the greatest feeling was to hear someone tell me that one of my teammates said, we don't have to worry about Bernie, because he's not for rent and he's not for sale. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honorable the Attorney General.
Mr. Speaker, thank you. I promise I will be very brief. I recognize lunch and the colleagues. Mr. Speaker, I just want to lend my voice in saying congratulations to all 19 elected members of this Honorable House and their hard-fought campaign, Mr. Speaker. I understand that in the context of politics, there's always the cut and thrust of the debate, and emotions run high. Things were said, and there are some raw wounds. But, Mr. Speaker, like all good people, once election is over, it is clear that members were prepared to put all of those aside and coalesce around one common mission, which is the advancement of this beautiful country. And, Mr. Speaker, I want to commend all 19 of them, because it is not easy to subject yourself to that sort of mission, if I might put it that way. It comes with personal sacrifice, both to themselves and to their families, their respective families, and their supporters. And so, even though I'm not involved in the process, Mr. Speaker, I do recognize what it entails. Mr. Speaker, I want to also say congratulations to all members of Cabinet. Looking forward to working with. And, Mr. Speaker, I want to say thanks to the outgoing government, the Honorable former Premier and the members, and thanks for their service and their leadership, especially during the difficult and turbulent period that we had with the pandemic. It was understandably quite turbulent. But, Mr. Speaker, as the Honorable Premier, now Premier, recognized in his inaugural address, we are the better for it in the sense that we are now here able to greet, meet, no social distancing, no mask, and all of that. And so, Mr. Speaker, congratulations to them and to, of course, our healthcare professionals, public health professionals who are also responsible for part of this. Mr. Speaker, the Honorable Premier spoke on Wednesday night, and I sat and I listened, and I was struck, Mr. Speaker, by what he said. Mr. Speaker, the tone was the right tone, the exact tone that you need after an election. And, Mr. Speaker, I was very confident then that we are on the right path, because that is exactly what you expect of a leader And he displayed all of those attributes. Mr. Speaker, I know the gentleman worked with him before. He has the right temperament that you would want in a premier. And so I am very confident, Mr. Speaker, that he is on the right trajectory. Mr. Speaker, I was struck by something else that he said as well on Wednesday night. And I don't know how many of us really stopped to notice that, but that the passing of the torch, Mr. Speaker, there was no veteran or seaman left in this parliament. And Mr. Speaker, it's kind of difficult to imagine, even though I wasn't around during a lot of those days, but certainly during my time, always one or two who were here and who were standouts, and who, of course, we owe the credit to for setting the template, Mr. Speaker. And to see this smooth transition as it is, from that generation to this generation, Mr. Speaker, it must be joy to our heart and our spirits. And so, Mr. Speaker, it was really good, really magnanimous of him to recognize that. Mr. Speaker, the challenges ahead of us are many. We have been I'm trying to choose my word very carefully to speak about some of the international initiatives that we are facing. And I recognize nowadays that everything you said is before you sit down is across the world. So, Mr. Speaker, let me just say it this way. We have some challenges. A lot of it has nothing to do with us. It's all external. And it requires vision, Mr. Speaker, going forward. It requires diplomacy, and it requires commitment. Mr. Speaker, I am confident that the members of the Cabinet have the necessary will. You can hear the passion being made. And so we are ready to continue the good work, roll up our sleeves, move forward with what needs to be done with alacrity, Mr. Speaker, and commitment. And as members said, all members recognize with the usual dignity and esprit de corps that we need as a country going forward, Mr. Speaker. So I want to say thanks and congratulations in the same breath. And Mr. Speaker, it is now time to continue the stewardship, good shape, Cayman. I thank you.
The Honourable the Premier.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I said much of what I wanted to say at this point Wednesday, but I think it would be remiss of me at this point to not acknowledge the great speeches, the maiden speeches in particular, that the members of the government have made here this afternoon. Mr. Speaker, I'm very proud of these fine Caymanians. I'm very proud of the diversity, and we're all very clearly understanding of the challenges that, as a government, we face running this country and taking it forward for the next 4 years. Irrespective of which government it was, Mr. Speaker, those challenges would exist. I have explained to them that there's a difference. The campaign is now over, and there's a difference between being in opposition, there's a difference between pontificating, there's a difference between having the ability to stand out there and criticize and make observations. When you have the awesome obligation of running the country, running the government, and making sure that we deliver for our people. Mr. Speaker, my friend, the Deputy Premier, when you talk with him, he absorbs everything. And the only difficulty, certainly, I mean, it's true of going last at any time, really. But with him in particular, going last means that he has already absorbed everything, and he has already said just about everything there was to say. I did think that I had one last point that I would like to acknowledge, and that was the fact that my classmate, the member for West Bay North, and my classmate, the Deputy Governor, was here with me as well. But of course, the Deputy Governor took that point as well, sir. I want to thank again the people of Newlands, Mr. Speaker, for giving me the right to be their representative, for putting their trust and confidence in me. I want to thank my colleagues for putting their trust and confidence in me and supporting me as Premier of this country. And I will also want to thank the thousands of messages that I've had, our wonderful citizens who have been encouraging and inspiring and supportive as well, many of whom I've not had the chance to respond to, Mr. Speaker. But I'm confident, Mr. Speaker, that I'll get back to them. I'm equally confident, Mr. Speaker, in this government. They have shown immense courage, strength of character, because what they have been through over the past week is how you forge steel, Mr. Speaker. I didn't get the calls, I wasn't getting the pressure, but they did. And it was incredible to me to watch the strength, in particular those who were newly elected, who had not been here before, had not faced the challenges. I would really highlight the same individuals in the same manner, as I said, the Deputy Premier did so eloquently, for the exact same reasons, Mr. Speaker. They're a stand-up group of people, and they will stand up and they will fight for the people of our country, and they will fight to deliver for the people of our country, and to ensure that at the end of the day, their lives are going to be better, and the lives of their children will be better, and the futures of their children will be better, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I would also like to extend my gratitude to my committee in Newlands, those two stalwarts of my community who nominated me, Mr. Dane Walton and Mrs. Elizabeth Whitaker, two incredible people to incredible citizens who care about their country, who care about their community. The approach to our campaign, Mr. Speaker, was one which was based on running a clean, issues-based campaign, not going after anyone, not getting down into anything which was negative other than confronting the issues. And I'm very proud of that. I'm very proud of the colleagues that I ran with on the same team of Community Creates Country, and therefore I'm very also proud to acknowledge my friend, my teammate, my successful teammate, the member from Savannah, who has as big a heart as anyone I've known. Mr. Speaker, I want to acknowledge as well my friend, and really, truthfully, Mr. Speaker, my friends on the other side of the aisle. We have had a long relationship. We are where we are in our respective positions today. But I want to acknowledge that a man that I know to be a very decent man, a very capable man, has shown the respect of sitting in his chair as the leader of the opposition. And he has remained there. So I thank you, Mr. Leader of the Opposition. And I know that your job and the job of your teammates is to hold the government accountable. And I know that you will do that. I know that you will fulfill your constitutional responsibility. I don't think any of us have any doubt that you will be a formidable opposition. But at the end of the day, this is about all of us working together in the best interests of our country, in the best interests of our children, so that our futures and their futures are protected. Mr. Speaker, yesterday when I was standing on the steps of this Honourable Parliament, I was delivering an address and looking down the street, which is named after my grandfather, Albert Panton. And for some reason, I hadn't really thought about it very much until over the last couple of months. And I thought about his brothers as well, who were engaged in public service. I thought about my uncle, who has served in this honourable Parliament, formerly Legislative Assembly, and my cousin, Mr. Orman Panton. And I think it reflects upon me the innate desire that I have to serve the people of the country and the approach that I take of putting the country first. There have been times over the last week in particular, Mr. Speaker, that I've had to reflect very carefully on what my decisions should be based on. And I want to make it clear, in respect of the comment from the member from Georgetown South, that the answer to her question is still, of course, she's supported. But at the end of the day, Mr. Speaker, we have an obligation to consider what our priorities are. And the first priority we have is to our country. The second priority for me is to my constituency. And the third is my own personal views or feelings. Mr. Speaker, you have issued a statement. You have acknowledged the issues, and you have issued an apology for past transgressions. We're all human beings, and I think you're to be commended for that. For us, Mr. Speaker, in terms of government, our position going forward is going to be one which absolutely ensures that the standards that we expect from all of us are exactly what should be expected from the leaders of the country. We intend to try to set the best possible example, Mr. Speaker. Yes, we recognize we're human beings, and occasionally we may fail. But this is going to be our aspiration as much as it is an aspiration for us and a commitment and a desire from us to ensure that we take this country forward safely, that we address the concerns of the people of this country, and we end up in a better position 4 years from now than we started off today. So, Mr. Speaker, I'm not going to keep anyone from lunch any further. I'm sure they're happy about that. I thank you very much. I thank the people again of the Cayman Islands for putting their trust in us. I thank the members of the opposition who will no doubt do their duty and, when it's appropriate, work with us. I thank the civil service for the great job that I know they have done in the past and they will continue to do, as outlined by the Deputy Governor and the Honourable Attorney General. And most of all, let me thank my team for being committed, for having the heart, for having the strength to still be here. And we're going to do this together for our beloved Cayman Islands. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
A few matters, colleagues, before we take the adjournment. Our National Parliamentary Prayer Breakfast will be a Thanksgiving Parliamentary Prayer Breakfast is set for the 5th of May. And you will be getting further notices on this as soon as possible. And you will be made more aware, particularly the new members, of what it's all about. But it's set for the 5th of May. The second thing I want to say that the remarks as made by the Premier on Wednesday, I will order that those remarks be attached to the Hansard of the House so that the record of that speech is set here. It wouldn't normally be because it was made outside of the chamber, but I'm going to order that that be attached to the Hansard for today's meeting. I am extremely pleased to hear my elected colleagues of West Bay say that we will work as a united force for all of West Bay. Our district needs to be brought together That's our duty, regardless of those who want to and is carrying on the election campaign. We cannot and must not be tempted to entertain those persons, but to do, as a member for West Bay South said, work in unity together for the District of West Bay. I like to quote Psalms. He says, "Behold how good and how pleasant it is for brethren to dwell together in unity." And Psalms 127 says, part, "Except the Lord keep the city, the watchman waketh but in vain." Except the Lord keep the city, the watchman waketh but in vain. Those of you know, and who know me, know I love music. There's an old Presbyterian hymn that says, "I feel the winds of God today. Today my sail I lift. Though weary or heavy oft with drenching spray, with many a rift. If hope but light the water's crest, and Christ my bark will use, I'll seek the seas at his behest, and brave another cruise. I feel the winds of God today. Today our sail we lift." The adjournment has been made. All in favor? Aye. Those against? The question is that we now adjourn sine die. This Honorable House stands adjourned sine die.